Joining us now, I think he's the best NCAA college hoops analyst in the business. He is Jay Bilas of ESPN. Jay, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing well. Thanks so much for taking the time. So you are an expert in such things. Obviously, everyone around here is super bummed out. They were pumped that Yoeli Childs back for his senior year, and he's banned for 9 games. Your thoughts on this?
Well, I feel badly for Yoeli because he's a great young man and a great player, but it's typical of the NCAA. You would think that an organization that touts education and student-athlete welfare would be welcoming a player back to school rather than a player that tests the waters and then decides to stay in the draft and leave school. But it really works out to be quite the opposite, that the NCAA is clearly trying to dissuade players from even trying this and going for a job interview, which is all Yoeli Childs was doing. He was having job interviews and decided he'd like to come back to school and play and pursue his education. And for having the audacity to have a dream beyond college and to try to pursue that, he loses a third of his senior year. And I don't know who that serves or sort of what policy this puts forward and, the message it sends. I mean, the only message I can tell is it's telling any young, good player, hey, listen, if you're going to test the waters, just go, because you're going to get jerked around like crazy if you come back. So you might as well go. And I hate to say that, but that's really the message they're sending. And it's unreasonable, and it's unfair, and it's wrong.
And Jay, look, I understand the letter of the law type stuff. I get it. Like, these are the rules. You got to follow them because maybe it sets a bad precedent. But it seems like, and you've been all over this with your commentary, not only on social media, but just what you do every day, TV, radio. Why isn't there any room for common sense with any of this stuff?
Well, and that's the key question, I think, is what happened to proportionality and common sense with regard to the NCAA. I'm not sure, honestly, they've ever had it. It's been sort of as you say, a letter of the law thing, and they've hid behind, well, this is what the membership wants. It's not what the membership wants. And look, I don't claim to understand, why the NCAA would even be in this area with regard to agents. If you're going to let a player have an agent, let them have whoever they want. Like, why do you care? And, there are no guidelines in place. So if Yoeli Childs got medical advice from BYU's doctors and wanted a second opinion and went to an outside doctor, there's no guidelines as to what he had to do that to remain eligible. He could, he could see a witch doctor. He could see he could see a palm reader. He could see any doctor he wanted. So why would we be so worried about somebody who's advising him on whether to stay in school or not? And if it is what it appears to be, which is just a technical violation based on paperwork, that's even more egregious. And look, I haven't dug into all the facts of this, but I know what's fair and what's not, and this is horribly unfair.
Jay Bilas is our guest, college hoops analyst for ESPN. Jay, the other thing this seems to be a lesson in, because I can remember when I was young, my parents always said, well, if you tell the truth, we'll let you off easy, which was never the case. So suddenly you admit that you're the one that ate the cookies before dinner and then you're grounded. So the NCAA said, okay, this like the self-reporting thing, this seems to be a lesson that it doesn't make sense at all. It's not even worth it. Like, Yoeli was super honest. BYU was very transparent. And then you have programs like UNC that for years and years and years have tried to keep things under wraps, and they have avoided any major sanctions. Does it make any sense for any program, any coach, or any player to self-report if this is the precedent that's set?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and look, I don't want to devolve into a discussion of the rules here, but the UNC case and what's going on here are vastly different.
Sure.
I mean, the truth is, and people don't want to hear this, but the truth is North Carolina didn't violate any NCAA rules with regard to the academic thing. And it's just a quirk in the rules where the presidents told the NCAA, stay out of our curricula. So a player cheating the school is a violation, but the school having a fraudulent curriculum is not. And that's the way the rules read. So actually, North Carolina didn't break an NCAA rule, which is why they didn't get sanctioned. They fought it very intelligently and wound up winning. The NCAA had nowhere to go. But your point is well taken as to, if you have something this small and based upon historical precedent that the NCAA will meet that with a disproportionate sanction and unfair treatment, then you're left with the decision of, do we even report this? Like, do we stand up and say, here, mistreat me, treat me like a piñata and hit me as often as you want over something so small? The problem is, all these folks at all these institutions, you, me, we all have a high level of integrity. So when we say that we're going to abide by the rules, we do. And so there's a requirement that they report this when they know about it, and they abide by that requirement, and they did their NCAA duty. The problem there is the administrators are put at a point of if they hold this back, they are risking their careers. And so basically the player gets sacrificed every single time. It's funny, nobody that is involved in any wrongdoing, like there's never an athletic director that gets sanctioned. No athletic director's ever put on ever has a show cause order. No president ever has a show cause order. That never happens. It's coaches and players that pay the price. And look, I think it needs to change, but I'm not going to hold my breath. I don't think it will.
Is there anything at this point, because, Jay, you referenced it, it's not one game, it's not two games, it's 9 games. It's a third of the season. And with Yoeli back, I think a lot of BYU fans and the coaching staff believe that potentially they're an NCAA tournament school. And he's missing 9 games. He's missing a third of the season. It is a harsh punishment. At this point, is there any hope in your mind that they could walk this back a little bit?
Maybe in the appeals process. I don't really know where it stands, whether they've appealed this or not, or are going to. The likelihood's probably pretty small. And the NCAA is really good at running out the clock on things like this, so they'd probably decide the appeal after the 9 games were over anyway. So I wouldn't hold out much hope of that. But you're kind of asking yourself, well, wait a minute, are you saying that Yoeli Childs is a pro because of what he did? So if he's a pro, why did they let him play at all? And why is it 9 games? I know they have. If you took an extra benefit, I mean, they're probably referring to this as some sort of extra benefit, I guess. But it's typical of the NCAA that they say, yeah, okay, well, you can test the waters and have an agent, and while you're testing the waters, we're going to put this toaster in your hands. It's just an unbelievable thing, and that's why when folks within the structure say student athlete welfare, I just go, please shut up, because you don't mean that. Student athlete welfare just means to them, hey, look what we're doing to enhance player performance, and we can call this a benefit to the players and claim that we're taking care of them. We're feeding them better, and they're feeding them better because they want to get enhanced performance. They have better workout facilities for enhanced performance. So they're not going to do anything. I'm sorry to say that, but it's not going to happen.
I've always agreed with your stance on paying college athletes, paying players, and certainly profiting off their likeness and such. But, you're an attorney by trade. You're a well-educated guy, and I want to ask you about Quin Snyder here momentarily. So my question, Jay, is what's the easiest way to make that happen to avoid all the red tape that people claim there is to paying college basketball players?
Well, I mean, if the NCAA goes toward name, image, and likeness rights and allows the players the same economic rights as every other student, then that's the easiest way to go about this. They really don't want to pay players for playing, this pay for play thing. And then out of the other side of their mouth, they'll claim, well, they're already getting paid because they're getting a scholarship that's worth X amount of dollars. And they're going, okay, well, if they're getting paid, then you're just capping the pay. So, why would you cap it when, they don't claim that a scholarship to a music student or an English student or a journalism student, they don't claim those scholarships are pay. Those are educational opportunities. So why are they calling it different with regard to an athlete? There are so many contradictions, but I think there's legislation going forward in multiple states right now to give players economic rights, and then Congress, the United States Congress, is actually taking this up. So there are a lot of representatives and senators that find this of great interest and think it's unfair. And so legislation is being brought up now and put forward, and we'll see where it goes. It's going to continue to put pressure on the NCAA. And look, the train's rolling down the tracks to the players getting more than the scholarship. It's going to happen. It's just a question of when and how.
So a couple of more minutes with Jay Bilas, college hoops analyst for ESPN. Jay, off your Twitter feed, I was able to, in preparation for the interview, I saw this Forbes article by Morton Jensen. And I heard you on Dan Patrick's show not too long ago talking about this Rich Paul rule that the NCAA, the memo they issued, increased requirements for agents. They have since walked a few of them back. Okay, so two-part question. What was the genesis, what was the motivation, origin story, whatever, for this entire thing? And are you satisfied with how much they've walked back at this point?
Well, the NCAA put in a rule a few days ago, a couple weeks ago, whatever it is, that if players want to test the waters, undergraduates want to test the waters like Yoeli Childs did, they have to have an agent that has been 3 years consecutively certified by the NBA Players Association, has to have a 4-year college degree, has to take a test in Indianapolis, has to actually fly to Indianapolis, or maybe you could drive if you want to do it, and get to Indianapolis and take a test sitting in the NCAA office in Indianapolis, and then a couple other things. And I think most people that saw that are like, are you people kidding me? Like, well, why can't you just say you've got to be NBA certified? Like, if it's good enough for the NBA, it's good enough for our players. And, it was ridiculous. And it wound up making them look bad because it was so exclusionary with regard to the 4-year college degree, when there are a number of agents out there representing players right now that don't have a degree. And look, it would be nice if every agent had a law degree and a PhD. That'd be great, but they all don't. And players should be able to have whatever advice they deem appropriate, and the NCAA shouldn't be involved in that. And they're claiming they're protecting the players when really what they're doing is putting another barrier between their players leaving early and going to the NBA. Look, if you want to just go, that's fine. But if you have any intention of coming back, then, the NCAA is basically saying you're going to do it our way, or we're going to treat you like we treated Yoeli Childs, that kind of thing.
All right, Jay, last thing before we set you loose. We've got a fellow Blue Devil, a friend of yours here in town. He's the head coach of the Utah Jazz, and we like him an awful lot here, and that's Quin Snyder. I've never heard you, at least on air that I've been able to hear, talk about your relationship with Quin, how well you know him. Did you see him back in the day becoming a really good head coach, and what are your thoughts on what he's doing with the Utah Jazz here?
I did see that. Quin and I were teammates in college at Duke, and so we've been, what I consider lifelong friends, and just with him this summer. And I think Quin was the smartest teammate I've ever had, and not only book smart, but just a brilliant basketball mind. I think he's proven that everywhere he's been, and especially what he's done with Utah. He's a savant, and just one of the best guys, honestly, I've ever known. A great friend, and I'd walk through fire for Quin Snyder. I think you guys are. I think kind of how lucky you are to have him, and I think he feels very fortunate to be there. And I think they're going to have a really good team this year. All the moves that they made in the off season, and then having Donovan Mitchell back, Utah is going to be a real threat in the playoffs. I'm really, really proud of Quin and the job he's done.
Since you brought it up real quick, Jay, I know you saw Donovan play in college, but he was kind of an unassuming member of Louisville. How surprised are you, based off of what you saw when he was younger, that he's turned into this?
I'm not. I can't say that I'm surprised. I mean, I thought he was going to be an outstanding player. Was I a little bit taken aback that it was so fast that he did it right away? Yes. He's a stud now. I mean, he was you probably know his background with his father in the Mets organization, and Donovan was a really good baseball player too. He's just a heck of an athlete, and he had a great college career at Louisville. I mean, just a stud. So, and a great young man, just fantastic. So I'm not only really happy for him, but I mean, I can't say that I'm surprised. It's just I was probably a little bit taken aback that any time at that age when it happens that fast and you get out of the gate like he did, it really impresses.
No doubt. Well, hey, Jay, look, I've long been a fan, and it's great to reconnect with you, certainly in this space. Keep up the great work, and hopefully we'll be able to do this again soon, okay? Be well.
I hope so. You too. Thank you.